Okay, let's begin today. My davar echadin. We're on page Chaf Amud Beis 20b, and my davar echadin would be 16 lines from the bottom or something. Okay, we thank Hashem that you're able to learn Torah every day. It's about learning. We should have the Beis Hamikdash. Learning for Shleima, for father, and Naftali ben Menachem. Okay. What happened here was we had a statement from Rav Dimi. Rav Dimi says that there's three types of shvuos, oaths, three types of oaths that are prohibited. There's a shvuos sheker, and that's when someone swears something. This is according to Rav Dimi's opinion. Rav Dimi, probably in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, right? Yeah, Rav Dimi in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. That there's a shvuos sheker. That's called a false oath. That's if someone swears something in the future and he doesn't fulfill it, or he swears that he won't, and he violates it. I will eat or I won't eat. That's shvuos sheker. That's false. When he violates it, he's lying. Right? It's false. He said that he won't, and then he did. Then there you have the past, and we call that an oath in vain, lashav. I did eat, or I did not eat, and he didn't eat, and he did eat, or he didn't eat. It was exactly the opposite. That's called the oath in vain. Then he mentioned that there's another one that's a kainam, if he makes something prohibited, and that's called bal yachal devarei, not to profane his words. That's what he said. So there's different types of oaths, and they have different prohibitions attached to them. The question that it says in the brisa that shav and sheker is one. So it sounds like that they're both for the past tense, and we said that sheker is future tense. False is future tense. And the Gemara says no, it doesn't. It's not telling you that that they both have to be past tense. They could each one is past and one is future. So the Gemara says, okay, so this is where we're holding my davar echadin. So then, what did he mean that there was one? So the Gemara answers, they were said with one, in one utterance, right? They were said by Hashem all together, because we can only say one word at each time, at each moment. Hashem can say multiple words. So those verses that prohibit shav was said together at the same time as the verse that prohibits sheker. In the Tanya, you find something similar to this. In the Brisa, it says Zachar v'Shamar b'dibar echad. It says remembering Shabbos and guarding Shabbos. It says in one breath, in one time. Mashein peh, mashein. What's the bit? Aleph. Mashein peh yachal ledaber. But a regular mouth is not able to speak. Mashein oisin yachal l'shmaya. What a regular ear is not able to hear. Are we able to hear it? I don't know, because Hashem spelled it out afterwards, I guess. No, we heard the Ten Commandments, right? How did Moshe hear it? We heard the first from Hashem. How did Moshe hear the Zachar v'Shamar? Said together. It says Eina Eizin Yachal L'Shmaya. Okay, so basically we have a precedent for this where the two things could be said at the same time, and so that's what we're saying over here, that the two prohibited oaths were said at the same time. Where it says 1 second. Over there, Ravada Barava explains why they were said together. Because Ravada Barava says, women are obligated to say Kiddush on Shabbos, Torah, from the Torah source. Because the pasuk says, Zachar v'Shamar. It says you should remember and you should guard. Anyone that's included in the prohibitions of guarding, we have a rule that whenever it says shamar, it always means negative prohibition. You should guard, just make sure not to violate something. Shamar is a negative prohibition. So anyone that's included in the negative prohibitions of Shabbos, which means you shall not work, etc. So those prohibitions apply to men and women, because what are women exempt from? Only positive commandments that are time-bound. And Shabbos is a positive command that's time-bound, but it's also a negative command. You shall not do work. So women really should not have to keep the positive commands. They should only have to keep the negative command, right? Because they shall not do work, but they don't have to listen to Kiddush. Kiddush would be a positive one. So the Gemara here says that no, because anyone that's obligated in the negative is also obligated in the positive. Where do we get that from? Because Zachar, which is to remember, which means to make Kiddush, is said at the same time as Shamar, the negative, you shall not do work. So anyone, including women, that has to keep the negative, also has to keep the positive. So Ravada Barava is saying this. He says, therefore, that's why Hashem said this all together, to teach me this halacha that women are obligated in Kiddush. V'hani nashi, and these women, hayol v'isnu b'shmira, since they have to keep the negative prohibitions of Shabbos, which means they shall not do work, isnu b'zechira, then they also have the positive command, which is to make Kiddush. Elahachab, when it comes to this, when it comes to the two types of oaths, why would Hashem have to say both types of oaths in the same breath? What halacha are we learning one from the other? That you have to say, is it only apply to one and now it's going to apply to both? Is there a halacha that you're getting out of this? That we have to do this type of talk? Ella, rather, very important word. Because when there's a rule that whenever the Gemara says Ella, it's retracting. Didn't have to say the word Ella. Could have said just to continue on. But Ella means that it's taking back what we said. When it's not because it was said b'dibar echad. We're going back. We're saying it's different. What does it mean that it was davar echad? That it's one thing. Not that it was said together. Rather, what it means to say that it's one thing is that there's malchus. He said that it's one. The two types of oaths, the false oath, which is a future oath, and the in vain oath, which is a past oath, both of them incur malchus. Someone says, I will not eat, and then he eats, gets malchus. He did an action, he violated the oath with an action. The same thing as if he makes a past tense oath, he says, I didn't eat, and really he ate, he gets malchus. Now, the way the Gemara wrote this is Kashem Shalaika al Shav, the same way he gets malchus for a past tense, Kach Laika Nami al Sheker. So he's also going to get a malchus for a future tense. Now, a past tense oath is without an action, because when he ate, there was no prohibition. The only prohibition was his speech. He said, I did not eat. I swear I didn't eat. That's the prohibition. That's the violation.
They're a little bit different because the one in the past, like the person is lying.
In the future,
the one in the future, like it's still up.
But when he lies, when he violates it, he lied. So both of them incur malchus.
But one is definite.
The other one is definite. They lied and went after the fact, right? So the problem is that which one would be more obvious that there's malchus? The one in the past tense or the one in the future tense? So the one in the future tense is more obvious that there's malchus, because over there he says, I will not eat, and then he goes ahead and he eats. So then he did an action. Malchus is usually lashes. Is usually when there's an action. So, but in the past tense, when he ate, there was no prohibition. And now he just said, I swear that I didn't eat. So the whole violation here was just his words. So that would be surprising that there's malchus there. But if you tell me there is, but I'm not going to say like this. Just like there's malchus in the past tense, so too we're going to learn from that there's malchus in the future tense. The Gemara says, "Klapilaya." It goes exactly the opposite, because the future tense would be the one that would teach me that maybe there's malchus in the past tense. But I'm not going to get from the past tense to the future tense, because the past tense is the bigger chiddush, and the future tense is the more obvious one. You don't learn from the bigger chiddush to the one that I would have known anyway. Elaima, rather say, Shem Shalek al Sheker, just like we just switched it around, just like you get malchus for the future tense when there's an action, Kach lekanami al shav, you also get malchus for the past tense even though there's no action there. Very interesting. The person takes an oath, says, I swear that I didn't eat, and he did eat, he gets malchus. And that's what who was saying this? That's what the Brisa means. That says shav v'sheker echadu, that they're the same. Both of them incur malchus. The Gemara says pshita. Okay, now 1 second. I just have to explain one thing that the Gemara is going to discuss later. But the Gemara says that on a Shavuos Shav, the pasuk says, "Kila Yanaka Hashem." Leisis Hashem alekech lashav. Kila Yanaka Hashem. Hashem will not forgive, will not cleanse someone that swears in vain. So the Gemara learns from that Hashem will not atone, but the Bezdin will atone, will cleanse. How will they cleanse? Together with malchus. So we have a pasuk that teaches me that there's malchus by Shavuos Shav. Okay, so that's how we're able to get this, even though there's no action there. There's a special exception. The Gemara says Pshita. Of course, there's going to be malchus. The pasuk says a high lav, a high lav. Both of them have a negative prohibition, and we have a special limit that it says kila yanaka. The Gemara doesn't spell it out, but Rashi spells it out. Ma'od detema. Why does it we have to have a brisa that says that it's echad? Kedam alei. I could have said kedam alei Rav Papa l'Abaya, like Rav Papa said to Abaya, lo yanaka klal. I could have said Abaya says kila yanaka Hashem. Abaya said Rav Papa asked his teacher Abaya, says, how do you know that's what it means? Maybe it means kila yanaka. There'll be no cleansing at all, not from heavenly court, not from the lower court. There's never any cleansing for a Shavuos Shav. Kila Yanaki will not be cleansed. So Abaye Kamash Malan, the Gemara answers, so I could have thought that there's no malchus. Comes along the Bryce, tells me there is malchus. And how do we know? Then why is there? Kedeshani lay, as Abaye answered, Rav Papa, that we're going to have the Gemara later today, where Abaye says Kila Yanaka Hashem. If it would have said Kila Yanaka, there will be no cleansing. He will not forgive. So then fine. Kila Yanaka Hashem means Hashem won't forgive, means the heavenly court, but the lowerly court will, yes, forgive with malchus. Okay. Okay. Be by Yasema, the Gemara is going to give me another teretz. Now the teretz for what does it mean? Echad. Thank you. Okay. It said that future tense oath, which is called sheker so far, and the past tense oath, which we call shav, is one. So we said 1 second, it's not one. One is past and one is future. It's not one. We said, well, it's one regarding the punishment for malchus. Now the second teretz is Iba Yasema. You could say Kashem maybe carbon al sheker, kach maybe carbon al shav. It's not referring to the malchus, it's referring to the carbon. Rabbi Kiva, and it's Rabbi Kiva. Just like there's a carbon, if someone violates his future oath, he says, I will eat, and he doesn't eat, or I won't eat, and he did eat. So too, he's going to bring a carbon if he lied about something in the past. He says, I swear that I didn't eat. And this is the opinion of Rabbi Kiva, the Machayev l'shavar kalaba. This is Rabbi Akiva's opinion, because if you remember in the Mishnah, when we quoted this before in the first parak, it says Shtayim Shein Arba. There's two types of oaths, which are really four. The two are the future, that you have to bring a sacrifice if you violate it. Same thing as the past. It's said that that's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, that says that there's a korban that you have to bring for if he violates, if he lied about something that happened in the past. But Rabbi Shmuel says different. Shmuel says there's only two types of oaths for the future, right? For the future, not for the past. There's no korban for the past. Okay, so this when we say that it's echad, we're saying that there's a korban for both, which is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. The Gemara has a question. What is an example of Shavuos Shav? He swears to change something that's obvious. He swears that he, for example, he says that this pillar of stone is really gold. He gives an example. He says that this man is really a woman. That's considered an oath in vain. Yeah, today it wouldn't be. It would be a chiddush. It wouldn't be. No, Lashani says to change. Okay. In other words, it's so obviously not true. It's so obviously not true. So that's considered in vain. He doesn't need anything to violate that. It's already just violated from the start. That's considered the oath in vain. Shavuos sheker. What's a shavuos sheker? Nishba lahachlef. Takes an oath to switch something. Lahachlef. That something is the opposite from what we thought. He's taking an oath in the past that he ate, and really he didn't eat.
First one is like something like obvious, like if someone says like
an obvious lie
is like a different color.
Yeah, like, an obvious lie. Yeah, that's a lashon. Different than what Rabdimi said. But for some reason, our Gemara is not concerned about the lashav part, which was different than Rabdimi, because even Rabdimi said that lashav is past tense.
Even like considered a lot of times when something that is not like like things that are not like really like have like something behind it that is considered nothing.
Someone swears that this tablecloth is metal, made out of metal. Everyone knows it's not, so that's a lashav. It's sworn in vain, right? That is why it's in vain, because everyone knows. But that's not true. What's he doing? Why is he saying it? So what about sheker? Sheker, we say, is nishba lahachlef. Is he's taking an oath that something that happened in the past is different. He says, I did eat, but really he didn't eat. He lied about the past. Problem is that Rabdimi said that Lasheker is a future, not a past tense. When it says, he swore and he changes, not that it was that it's changed from the past, that he will change. Nishba, he takes an oath of machlef, and then he does the opposite. He swears that he's not going to eat, and then he eats. So it's a future tense. That's exactly what Rav Dimi was saying. So with adjusting the word, we satisfy the comment of Rav Dimi. Kiyasa Ravin comes. That's what happens typically in the Gemara, is that Rav Dimi comes and he says something, we have questions on it, and then Ravin comes and gives us a different story. Kiyasa when Ravin came, which was later after Rav Dimi, says Amar Rab Yirmiyah, says the name of Rab Yirmiyah, Amar Rab Avo, in the name of Rabbi Avo, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. This is a bunch of names here. Rabbi Yirmiyah in the name of Rabbi Avo, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Says Achalti v'lo achalti is sheker. Very different. We were saying the whole time that what's a false oath? Future. He says no. False oath is a past tense. If he says I ate and really he didn't eat. That's false. He lied. What's the prohibition? Like you shall not swear in my name falsely. Means you should, if it didn't happen, then you can't swear that it happened. Right? I will eat and he doesn't eat. Future tense. That is a prohibition of you shall not profane your words. You took an oath and you didn't keep it. Rabbi Kiva only added that the past tense guy has a carbon. We didn't mention that yet. Here we're just saying what the term shua sheker is, what the term shua shav is, what the term bal yachal dvari. So far we have sheker is a future tense. Sorry. Yeah, sheker is a past tense. That's what we have now. We switched from Rav Dimi. Sheker is a past tense. He said that I ate and really he didn't eat. Future tense, he says I will eat and he doesn't eat. That he violated his word. He profaned his word. And what is the one that's in vain? That's when he swears to change something that's obvious. The example that Rashi gives for that is if he swears that a man is a woman, which is obviously not true. It's so obvious. Okay. Right. Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa says, see, I emphasized when we're learning this that it's Ravin in the name of Rav Yirmiyah, in the name of Rav Avo, in the name of Rav Yechanan. For some reason, when Rav Papa is discussing this, he says that this that was said in the name of Rav Avo, which is one of the middle names here, was not actually said directly. It was implied from something else that Rav Avo said, and that's how we got this. It wasn't said clear. It's clearly it was michlala. It was implied from something else. The Amar of Idi Bar Oven, Amar Rab Amram, Amar Rab Yitzchak, Amar Rab Yechanan, another bunch of names. Rabbi Idi Bar Oven, name of Rab Amram, name of Rab Yitzchak, name of Rab Yechanan. What does he say? What does Rab Yechanan say? Rabbi Yehuda Mishim Rabbi Yossi Aglili. The Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Rabbi Yehuda is a student of Rabbi Akiva. Yossi Aglili is a student and a friend of Rabbi Akiva. So it's like half a generation up. He says, Kol Shabbat Torah, any negative prohibition, lav sheyesh b'maisa. If there's an action in that prohibition, then leiken alav, then there's malchus. Shein b'maisa, but if there's no action, ein leiken alav, then there's no malchus. We've had this rule many times, and it's quoted from this Rabbi Yehuda, the name of Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Chutz, with the exception of three things: nishba, an oath, right? Meimer is someone that transfers the holiness of one sacrifice onto another sacrifice, and which ends up that they both end up being holy. But whatever the case is, you weren't allowed to do that. So there's malchus called Tumura, and the makalas chaver b'shem, and someone that curses his friend with the name of Hashem. You can curse with Hashem's name. So those get malchus, even though they're just verbal prohibitions. There's no action. There's no, just with his mouth. Nishma minalan. How do we know that there's malchus from when someone takes an oath? Amar Rabbi Yechon Mishim Rab Shimon Yechai. Rabbi Yechon says the name of the Rashbi. Amar Kra, the pasuk says, this is what we've mentioned before in the discussion with Rav Papa and Abaya. It says, Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Kili Sisa Shem Hashem Alekach Lashav. You shall not take Hashem's name in vain, because he won't atone. What does that mean? He won't atone. Besin Shalmaila, the heavenly court, Ein Menachane say won't atone for him, won't cleanse him. Aval Besin Shalmata, but to the lower court, Malkan say and Menachane say they give him Malchus and they will atone for him. So the Malchus of the lower court is considered an atonement for the oath that's in vain. Amalei Rav Papa Labaya. Papa says Tabaya, Dilma, this is what we quoted. Dilma Hachi Kamar Rachman Aleinak Klal. Maybe it means that there won't be any atonement at all. How do you know it means that there'll be no atonement from above, but yes, atonement from below? maybe layanaka means no atonement at all. So Abaye responded, Iksiv ki layanaka, if it would have said he will not cleanse Kedakamrit, then it's the way you said, correct. But Hashtiksiv ki layanaka Hashem, now that it says Hashem won't cleanse, Hashem udena menaka, it's only Hashem, the heavenly court, that won't atone. But the lower court, Malkanai say, Manakanai say. Okay, so that's where we know that there's Malkus, even though it's a law of Shein by Maisa. It's a negative prohibition that doesn't have an action. This is an exception. We learn it from that pasuk. Ashkan Shvuah Shav. If you look carefully at the pasuk, it doesn't say a false oath. It says, "Do not take Hashem's name in vain." It means an oath in vain. That's lashav, in vain. Shvuah Shekem Minalan. How do we know a false oath? Right? We only know an oath that's in vain. What did we say? An oath that's in vain was someone that swears that the man is a woman. How do we know the false oath is someone that swore about the past, according to Rabbi Vo? So Rabbi Yechanan Didei Amar, Rabbi Yechanan himself explained this. He says, Lashav, Lashav, Shtei Pam. You see, this comment was Rabbi Yechanan in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And Rabbi Yechanan explained this. It says Lashav, Lashav twice. It says Lashav twice. So, if you don't need it for the oath in vain, so Taneyawin Lishva Sheka, we'll use it for something else. This is a rule that we have, that sometimes we can take something out of context because it's totally extra and use it for something where it's necessary. So Taneyawin Lishva Sheka, we'll use it because it says it an extra time. The heavy bar Rabavo, and Rabavo asked on this, Hi Shva Sheker Echidami. What is the case of Shva Sheker? If he says it's an oath where a person swears that I will not eat, then he went and ate. It says then, Lav Sheyesh B'Maisu. That's so obvious that there's Malchus, because when he ate, that was an action that violated the prohibition, and that's an action. Rather, it must be the opposite. It must be that he swore that he will eat, and he didn't eat. He neglected from performing what he was obligated to do. Gemara says, "Haimi like it? You get Malchus for that." If someone takes an oath, he says, I'm going to eat this loaf of bread today, and the day passed and he didn't eat it. Rabbi Yechon Rish Lakish Damer Tavai ain't like it. Say there's no Malchus. It gets complex. Depends what type of oath it was. If it's an oath that he said that he won't do something and he did it, there's Malchus. An oath that says that he will do something and he doesn't, there's no Malchus. Rabbi Yechon explains why is there no Malchus, ain't like a Jim Davalav Shem B'Maisa. Because it's a negative prohibition that doesn't have an action. What's a negative prohibition is violated his oath. He said he will not. He says that he will, and he didn't, which was a violation of his oath. But it doesn't have an action. You don't get malchus for that. Rish Lakish says in because it's the warning that he got for that was all a suffix. Because when should the person be warned? In the morning? He took a note that he's going to eat. Warn them in the morning, you better eat. He said, no, I still have time. So they never were able to warn him that if you don't eat, you're going to get malchus. Because the whole day he just says, I still have time. Now, what about the very end of the day? Last moment. Rashi says, you can't get it exactly to get that last moment of the day, that the person will violate it at the very, very last moment that he's going to give Asra. So we consider the whole thing Asra suffix. Whenever he's warned, it's not definite that he's going to violate it because he could have more time in the day to eat it. So Rabavo explained to hey, should be the case. What's the case of Lashav that we're using? It's a case of Lasheker, that it's false, that we're using an extra word Lashav to teach me that there's Malchus. That's Ba'achalti v'layachalti. When he swore that he ate and really he didn't eat. Aha! That's what we were looking for. When we started this, we said that Rav Papa says this of Rabavo that says that a Shvuah Sheker is a past tense Shvuah. an oath of the past that was not true, that's not said clearly by Rabbi Vo. That was just implied by Rabbi Vo. Now, how was it implied? Because Rabbi Vo, in explaining what Rabbi Yochanan meant, that Lasheker is learned from Lashav, the case that he gives for that is a past tense shua. Where a person says that I ate and really he didn't eat. And over there's going to be Malchus. Mar says, Maishna, 1 second. What's going on over here? You said when there's a future tense shua where there's no action, you said there's no Malchus because there's no action. Past tense shua also doesn't have an action. What's the difference one from the other? I ate, and really he didn't eat. There's also no action in that. What did he violate? He said that he didn't eat. It's not true. Amarava, Rava says, the fair ships a Torah shua sheket daim. 1 second, but we have a limud from the Torah. It says lashav twice, and mashav l'sha'avar. Just like lashav, when what was the original lashav? Someone changes something that's obvious. He swears that a man is a woman, so which is an oath in vain because it's obviously false. So afshekanami l'sha'avar, also when he takes a false oath, it's also in the past. It's also in the past. It's also in the past tense. As we're learning lashav, I guess the Gemara was asking, how do you know that this lashav is teaching me past tense oath and not that future tense oath where there's no action? Maybe will tell me this Malchus there. It says no, it's more similar to the past tense. One lashav is more similar to the other lashav because over there to say that a man is a woman is something that's in the past or in the present, but it's not the future. But and the same is with the oath where a person says I ate and I didn't eat, so that's also past. Esri Reb Yirmiyah Rabbi Vo. Reb Yirmiyah was the one that said this over in the name of Rabbi Vo, had a question that he asked to Rabbi Vo. Someone takes an oath. He says, I will not eat this loaf of bread. Takes an oath again. I will not eat it. Takes an oath. I will not eat it. Then he ate it. He's only chayav once. Because you're not chayav when you're stacking oaths on top of one on top of the other. It's all the same oath. This is a shuas bitay, an expression, an oath of expression. That if he does this on purpose, translate this other, and if he does it intentionally, he gets lashes. And if it's a mistake and he didn't realize, so then it's carbonite leviyared. It's unintentional, then he has to bring the sacrifice. Now, when we imply from this, when he said zuhi, this is the implication. Lamute mai. What are you coming to exclude? Lav lamute achalti v'lo achalti v'lo lucky. Probably telling you this is the oath that gets malchus. He says, I will eat, and he doesn't eat. Or he doesn't eat, and he swears that he doesn't eat. I'm sorry, it has to be. Swears that he doesn't eat, and he actually goes ahead and eats it. So that is going to be malchus. However, if he says that I ate and I didn't eat, that probably means that the lucky that he doesn't get malchus, because we said this is, that implies that in another case not. Now, I have several options here. It's not very scientific, this, because I have other variables. One is maybe if he takes the oath the other way. If he takes the oath that says, I will eat, and then he doesn't eat. Maybe that's the case where he doesn't get malchus. Maybe when it said this is one that he gets malchus, and he also unintentional brings a carbon, maybe it's referring to the unintentional, not to the malchus. Maybe it's referring to the carbon. How do you know it's referring to the malchus? There's several items here that the way that this could go. Anyway, the Gemara says, see, achalti v'lo achalti, you don't get malchus. Past tense, you don't get malchus. This Rabbi Yochanan says, and the Rabbi Vo explains, because it says lashav an extra time, it's just referring. So it's not referring to the shav because we already have lashav in vain. So it's referring to lasheker. What's lasheker as a past tense? If he says that I ate and really he didn't eat. So, and over there you do get malchus. Now we're saying that it's implied that you don't. Gemara says, lie, no, that's not the correct implication. Implication is lamute yachalti, v'lo yachalti mikarban. You don't have to bring sacrifice for a past tense oath. Zuhi dal shigasa karbanai leviyarid aval achalti v'lo yachalti lie. Rabbi Yishmael, it's the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael that he argues with Rabbi Akiva. He says that a past tense oath doesn't require a karban. You still get malchus for a past tense oath, but you don't bring the karban. Very interesting. Okay. Ima Seifa. You follow where we're holding that? We're holding that a past tense oath is called lasheker. A future tense oath is a violation of bayachol dvarim. And an oath lashav in vain is if someone says something that's obviously false and says a man is a woman. We learned that you get malchus for a past tense because of an oath in vain gets malchus, and it says lashav, and it says lashav a second time, and that second time is only used to teach me that a past tense oath also gets malchus. What about a karban for a past tense oath? We said that this Mishnah that you quoted would be following the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael that says a past tense oath doesn't bring a karban. Rabbi Akiva has held that it does, but that wasn't this Mishnah. This Mishnah was Rabbi Yishmael that says that you only have to bring the karban oil of the that special karban that's sliding scale depending on his as well. That's only for a future tense, not for a past tense. Shnaim Shein Arba was only Rabbi Akiva's Shnaim Shein Arba. Okay. Ema Seifa. Read further in that brisa. It says, "What is a shvuah shav?" Someone changes something that's obvious. It says that this pillar of stone is really gold, or those other cases, this man is a woman. Zui shvuah shav says, "Shechayav al sedaina makas val shigasa pater." This is a shvuah shav that if it's intentionally said, then there's malchus, and if it's unintentional, then he's exempt. And when you say zu, it says this is, that means that something else is not, right? It's implying something else is not. Zui limute mai. What is this coming to include? My lab, is it not limute achalti v'lo achalti d'lei laki? It must be saying that this is the one that gets malchus, the shvuah shav. But if past tense oath, which is we call it sheker, then there won't be malchus. Now, who holds that a past tense oath doesn't get malchus? No one holds that. This would be a question on Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Vo that said that a past tense oath gets malchus because of the pasuk Kileyanaka Hashem. Hashem doesn't atone, but the Bezdin does, and we have an extra word over there. It goes to Lasheket, where it says like Zui dal shigasa pater mikarban aval achalti v'lo achalti al shigasa chayiv karban. This is what we mean is not the first part. It's the implication is not from the malchus. The implication is from the karban. This is the one that doesn't have to bring a karban because this is lashav. But if it would be lasheker, then there would be a karban. If it would be a past tense oath, then there would be a karban. Which means if he says that I ate and really he didn't eat, then there would be a karban. Now, who holds that? Not Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael held that you don't. This must be Rabbi Akiva. It's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. The Mechayev l'sha'avar kalaba, as he says, Shnaim Shein Arba. There's two oaths that are future tense and there's two oaths that are past tense, and both of them require a karban. This is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Amrit Reisha Rabbi Yishmael. But you told me the beginning of this Mishnah was Rabbi Yishmael when you told me that if someone takes an oath 3 times, he's only chayav 1 karban. He's only chayav once, right? And he says that is the one that's chayav, but another one is not because it's a future tense. That's why you're chayav. But a past tense, you won't be chayav a karban because of the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. Now you're telling me this is one that's not a karban because it's lashav, but lasheka, but a past tense would be chayav. It's Rabbi Akiva. So you have in one Mishnah, you have both opinions going on. It doesn't make sense. We don't like when it does that. When the Mishnah doesn't tell me Amar Rabbi Kiva Amar or something. Rabbi Kiva the Mechayev l'Shavik Laba. It says Amar Reish Rabbi Shmali, Reish Rabbi Shmal, V'Sefer Rabbi Akiva. But that's what you want to do. You want to divide this price up without any division, and just say that the beginning is Rabbi Shmuel, and is Rabbi Akiva. My answer is Kula Rabbi Akiva. No, it's really all Rabbi Akiva. That option that you chose in the Reisha, in the beginning, when it says someone takes an oath 3 times, it says this is the oath that he's chayav malchus in a karban if it's b'shaygeg, but not something else. We thought that it was referring to a past tenth oath doesn't have to bring a karban, and it would be Rabbi Shmuel. It says no, that's not what it's coming to do. It's coming to do a future tense oath where he swears that I will eat, but he doesn't eat, that he doesn't have to bring, that there's no malchus. It doesn't have to, there's no malchus there. Like we said, that in such a case there's no malchus, either because it's Asra Safik or because it's Lav Shem B'Maisa. He swore that he's going to eat and he didn't eat. So he violated that in a passive way, which means that there's no action. There's no malchus. Aval karban mechayev would have to bring a karban, which means that in the case of a chalti, there would be a karban, which is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. But Maishna, what's the difference? What is the Gemara asking Maishna? How do we know that it's coming to exclude oichel v'loyachal? Maybe it's coming to exclude a chalti v'loyachalti. How do you know it's coming to exclude the future tense, and a passive future tense? That there's no malchus. Maybe it's coming to exclude a chalti v'loyachalti from karban. It says mistaber koi balaba mimayit laba. What was the original oath that we were talking about? He says, I will not eat this loaf of bread. Then he said again, I will not eat. He said again, I will not eat. This is the type of oath that has malchus in a karban. Now, since it's talking about a future tense, it's excluding a future tense where he says, I will not, it says, I will eat, and then he doesn't end up eating. So, if it's talking about a future tense, you think it's coming to exclude a past tense. No, it's coming to exclude the other type of future tense where it doesn't work. Okay. Said in the Mishnah, we'll do the question. We'll stop. Said in the Mishnah that Rabbi Akiva held that if someone swore that he wouldn't eat, but then he ate, he's going to be chayav, but only if, even if he didn't eat a kazayas, even if he ate the smallest amount. The Rabbanan would agree with that if he swore that I'm not going to eat the smallest amount. But if he just swore that he's not going to eat, the Rabbanan say that no, eating in general would mean a kazayas, not a mashahu, not the smallest amount. So that's Rabbi Kiva's opinion, is that even without specifying that it's the smallest amount, he violates the oath by the smallest amount, and he would get bichayev even for that. The Gemara has a question. Rabbi Kiva b'cholater kulak Reb Shimon Svirlei Mechayev Mashu. Reb Shimon's of the opinion that every rule in the Torah is chayev even without a kazayas, even with the smallest amount. Unique opinion. Does Rabbi Kiva always hold like Reb Shimon? The Tanya Reb Shimon taught. The Tanya was taught in Reb Shimon Aimer Kol Shul Malchus Bleimer Kazayas El in Karban. So why does it say kazayas? That's only regarding a sacrifice that he has to bring. But regarding malchus, we give him malchus even if he violates the smallest, if he eats the smallest amount. And does Reb Akiva agree with Reb Shimon always? Reb Shimon is Reb Akiva's student. We should have said this in other cases. Why do you only mention this by Shavuot? As well, we should have said in other cases, you're right. But here, the reason why we quoted Rabbi Akiva here, because we wanted to show how the sages are so lenient. Even though we could have said, if someone specifies in his oath and he says, I will not eat the smallest amount. He swears that I won't eat the smallest amount. And then he eats the smallest amount, right? A little pinch of of bread. So he's going to be chayiv. So stam nami chayiv. I could have thought that maybe maybe if he says, I will not eat, it means even the smallest amount. Kamash malan the ptiri. Comes to tell us the Rabbanan say that he's pater until he eats a kazayas. So that's a chiddush. That's why we're mentioning it here, even though Rabbi Kiva really holds this in every other case as well. But we wanted to mention the opinion of the Rabbanan that argue on that. Or perhaps Balmakar Rabbanan's really Rabbi Kiva holds always like the Rabbanan. What's the reason why you're saying over here differently? Since if he specifies that he takes an oath, he's not even going to eat a single drop, and he violates it, he would be chayiv. So stam, if he just says plain without saying the single drop, if he says I will not eat, it's including a single drop, and so therefore nami chayiv would also be chayiv over there. That's the Gemara's question. We're gonna have to prove it. We'll learn tomorrow. Hashem. Let's leave it over here. Okay, have a good day.